There's a topic that we've just started to explore on the podcast here, and that's think of like the last time we went into a CAB meeting, like a customer advisory board meeting, right? We come out and we're all doing high fives and belly bumps because we're like, oh, we got to do that so much more often, or we learned so much. That's a perfect example of unstructured data, right? A gong recording of a sales call, unstructured data, right? What you're talking about, David, is the back and forth, right? The conversation that happens and what we learn inside of that. How are you allowing through sugar? How are you allowing that unstructured data to be something that is not only captured, not going to decay, but become part of that decision-making process?
Yeah. First of all, it's just as simple as capturing it. I think most salespeople would say, look, I've got to update my CRM on Friday because I got my manager calls on Monday. We got to submit our forecast on Tuesday. There's this rhythm of most companies, and they don't want to sit for 2 hours and update their CRM. It'd be great if they could get in their car after a customer meeting, record a quick 5-minute audio recording and have that be ingested. And that's exactly what we've done and we're doing, is being able to pull all that information in. And then that's using AI, of course. And then on the other side of it, it's how do you use AI to recognize the patterns within the data and to actually take action, right? So if an opportunity is going from sales stage 2 to sales stage 3, and that's the stage you put a proposal together, a whole bunch of that information you captured in that audio recording is helping shape what that PowerPoint presentation looks like. And AI can create a first draft that leverages all of that to help the seller get, 75, 80% of the way there before they go out to the customer meeting and make the proposal. So I just think there's so much using this technology that if put into the right business workflow, if leveraging all this unstructured and structured data can just make the seller feel like they're able to get 5 times as much done because they've got, I probably said this on your last podcast, they've got an Ironman suit that helps them just be faster and stronger than they otherwise would be.
So Grant, with all of this data, right, the structured and unstructured, and making use out of it, does it put more onus on the C-suite to make sure that all of the KPIs that you talked about earlier are very well documented so that the AI tool knows from like all these conversations that it's bringing in, what's even the most important? What are the most important? Like if you said, here's the 5 most important bullet points of our go-to-market strategy, our unique point of view that makes us different and unique, that raises eyebrows, right? If we don't, as a C-suite team, really make sure that's a framework that the sales team, the marketing team, the AI tool, the CRM, everything has all the way through, like, why do we lose deals, right? And how are we pulling out really good insights so we can see, objections coming before they come. We know how to answer them when they do. Doesn't this entire conversation put more onus on the C-suite to make sure that has been clearly articulated and that it's not just a bunch of data coming in that AI on its own based on general market information is making decisions based on?
100%. We have to have a unified view on the metrics that matter and the most important ones. Otherwise, if everybody's bringing their own view, sets of numbers, interpretations, we'll never be aligned. It's like we're all speaking different language that each other doesn't understand, right? And so that's the common language of numbers from all the C-suite to the board to investors. And, I've been fortunate enough to be at both PE and public companies and, a maniacal focus on instrumenting the business and knowing the numbers that matter and getting both leading indicators and lagging indicators. They're not all leading indicators. When people start deflecting in mass, and so Dave knows this quite well, it's like there were some signs along the way that they were going to soft or hard churn, but you weren't looking at the numbers, time they're using your software. Like it went down by 50%. Wasn't that a sign they're not getting as much value at it, et cetera? But yes, 100% focus aligned on the most important numbers.
And Steve, maybe I'll build on that a little bit if I could. You talked about the C-suite being really aligned on what the message is, what the competitive advantage is, what the objection handling is. If you go back to the early days of implementing CRM, it was all about setting up your fields and setting up your integrations, right? It was a very structured mindset. The implementation of today looks very different. You're actually loading in content and video into your CRM system. Things like, what's the sales cycle? What's the entrance and exit criteria? How do you handle certain objections? Who are your competitors? Where do you win and you not win? You don't need to put that in the structured fields. Load in your best competitive PowerPoint decks and allow AI access to that, and use that as a way of helping informing and guiding the sellers to be able to respond to whatever situation they're dealing with. So a historic CRM implementation looks nothing like today's CRM implementation, which is content and video on top of fields and mapping and integration.
So tell me if I'm taking this away correctly or not, because we've had PowerPoint decks before. We've had sales training before, right? But that has a lot of the time been disconnected from the tool that now AI is enabling, that can make sense out of that and bring it in at the moment that it makes the most sense to make the right recommendations, right? So it can't just be sales training anymore, right? It has to be more integrated. Is that?
Well, maybe enablement starts to be a little different, right? So let's pretend we've got a PowerPoint deck with 20 competitive battle cards or 10 competitive battle cards. And we've all seen battle cards before, right? In the old days, you train the seller on it. You hope they consume what you said about why we compete with our biggest competitor. You hope they remember what questions to ask to help frame the competitive positioning. Now, in the new world, AI has access to all that. And it's actually telling the seller, go talk about this topic in this context because this is the competitor. And they know it's a competitor because they heard, heard the conversation you had with the customer about who else they're considering. So it just starts looking entirely different than the way we used to do this.